This amp is so loud, Ampeg literally had to slap a warning label on it. And that's not a joke. The Ampeg SVT changed the game in 1969 and it's still shaking up stages today. In this video, we're going to talk about the legendary Ampeg SVT sound, why it's still the gold standard for rock, and how to use it with your Line 6 Helix. I'm Twisty, and if you're a bass player that loves powerful rock tone, then this video is one you want to hang around for. Today we're going to dive into the Ampeg SVT, its wild history, its iconic tone, and how we can dial it in perfectly for that classic rock tone with our Line 6 Helix. So here's the deal. You're a bass player in a rock band and you need that tone to be able to cut through the wall of guitars, override the kick drum, be heard at the back of the arena with a nice, tight, punchy, slightly growly sound. Then the SVT from Ampeg and the 8x10 cabinet is absolutely for you. But vintage SVTs are really heavy. They're loud and they're really expensive. And they're also not exactly bedroom friendly for your practice sessions. And even if you could lift it into the rehearsal studio, I'm not sure any of your mates will be very happy with you. So that's where the challenge lies. How do I get that iconic SVT sound without the pain of lugging all the gear? And when was the last time you lugged into a gig on the ground floor? Carrying those 8x10 cabs up 3 flights of stairs is not fun, I'm telling you. To understand the Ampeg SVT, we need to roll the clock back to 1969, dude.
What number are we thinking of? 69, dudes!
By the late 60s, rock shows were getting larger and venues were getting bigger. Bassists were needing more power than the Ampeg B15 at 25 to 30 watts or the Fender Bassman at 50 to 100 watts was able to give them to fill those arenas. In 1969, when the Rolling Stones toured America, they had lots of power with their British-based amps, with the difference in power supply, 240 volts in the UK and 110 volts in the US. And they couldn't get the voltage regulated, so the amps kept making the magic smoke come out. Enter the Ampeg Super Vacuum Tube, or SVT, 300 watt all tube muscle that would provide the Rolling Stones a ridiculously loud rig. With 6 6146 tubes for the power and 12 12AX7 tubes for the preamp section, the early models required 2 8x10 cabinets to be able to get the full 300 watts output from this massive amplifier. The amp was so powerful that when it came out, it was released with a warning on it. This amp can cause permanent hearing damage. By the early 70s, the SVT and its 8x10 cabinets had become the most recognizable bass rig on the planet. Revered by bassists worldwide for its biggest, nastiest tone, it dominated the backline on stages for years. In the 1980s, an update to the amp allowed it to operate at 300 watts with a single 8x10 cabinet, which made it slightly easier to carry around, but not much. With the Super Vacuum Tube amp being a mainstay of most rock acts, bass players like Gene Simmons of Kiss and Cliff Williams of AC/DC often could be seen with these rigs on their stage shows. The aggressive punch and mid-range grind out of this amp, especially when volume was pushed, also made this amp a favorite amongst punk musicians and hard rock heavy metal players. The popularity also moved into the 90s with bass players like Chris Novoselic from Nirvana making it popular in his backline as well. So what makes the SVT tone so special? You've got enormous clean headroom, which is usable for any genre, from pop, funk, grunge, rock, a great tone to build upon. You got massive low-end punch and a growling mid-range that allows you to cut through the mix, especially when you've got those rock guitars going. As you push the amp in both the preamp and the power stage, you get that nice compression that you get out of a tube amp as it's reaching its limits. And the legendary 8x10 cabinet, also lovingly referred to as the fridge, gives you that nice tight bottom end. It wasn't just the volume, it was the clarity of the power that bass players were rejoicing in. The amp has two channels, bright and normal, or normal and bright, depends how you want to look at it. Each one has a separate volume control and tone controls. Channel 1, or the normal channel, has a 3-band EQ of bass, treble, and a mid-range with 3 frequency positions to select from. The second channel, channel 2, or the bright channel, has bass and treble only, and it's better suited for more aggressive tones. So this was often used by punk players. It accentuates the treble, making the pick attack and slap pops really cut through. The 8x10 cabinet, or the fridge, is made up of 4 2x10-inch speaker arrays that are internally separated from or isolated from each other. This gives a tight, punchy response from the amp. There's no tweeters in the cabinet, and the frequency response of the speakers has a natural roll-off that gives a smooth but present top-end tone that the SVT is known for. Let's have a look at the Line 6 Helix and how we can get that monster amp and monster cab to work in a small, backpackable device. So let's have a look at the modern version of the SVT in the digital world. So as we look on HX Edit, I've just set up just a very simple preset. I'm just running a simple compressor at the front to tone my playing down a bit. Then I've got a normal Ampeg SVT norm channel, and I'm running an 8x10 SVT cabinet with a mic. So as you can see, Line 6 supports both the normal channel and the bright channel. The normal channel, like the original hardware version, has a smoother sound to it, and the bright channel has a bit more of a high frequency boost that you find in the real SVT as well. Now if I have a look at the console and the controls you've got there, we've got the drive or the gain or the preamp volume, if you like. And this drives that level of grittiness, so as it clean all the way up to completely in your face overdrive. You've got the bass control, and then you've got a mid control which has 3 switches on it. You can frequency at 220 when you're doing the mids, 800 or 3 kilohertz. And then you've got a treble. The channel volume is the volume for the block. That doesn't affect the tone of the amp in any way, but it allows you to level set the block as you gain stage your block. The master is the master volume, or the volume of the power stage of the amp. I like to have that at 10 because I really like that power stage compression that you get. Now, because it's a model of a valve amp, you also then have the valve controls. So sag gives you a little bit more valve compression. So the higher you drive the sag, the more compression you're going to get out of that master volume. So I leave that about normal. Hum gives you that 60 or 50 hertz cycle hum like an original amp would have. I don't worry about it, I'll leave it out. And the bias and ripple I just leave as mid neutral. Now this is the normal channel. What you'll see is on the bright channel, you've got the same controls. So unlike the original, which had the bass, mids and treble for channel 1, but only bass and treble for channel 2, Line 6 are giving you the same controls for both amps. So depending on which brightness or smoothness you want, the controls are going to be identical. It's just the tone of the amp is going to be brighter with the bright channel. Now I'm not using that one at the moment, that's just to show you the controls. You also see on the 8x10, I've got a 10-inch cabinet, and as with all Helix cabinet controls, I've got a mic to choose from. I can choose the position in front of the cone, away from the cone edge, or at the cap or the edge of the cone. The distance away from that, the angle of the mic, I either want it 45 or flush on. And then there's a low cut and a high cut filter. If you see my videos before, I like to have a cut at around about 45 Hertz, which helps me get my tone away from the muddiness and the bottom end of the kick, and a high cut around 5 kilohertz, because most of the bass cabinets that are modeled on anything above 5 kilohertz is pretty wasted. So a cut there is good. Now with the drive, I've got this set it fairly clean. When you set it to around 3 to 4, you start to get into that sort of rock, grungy. Yeah, it starts to break up as you dig. As you dig in there. If you look at around 5 to 7, so let's say 6, we start to get a bit more mid-range ground. Starts to really kick in there. And if I go up to 8, lots of drive in there, lots and lots of drive. With the mid-range, if you are looking for a bit of a scooped sound, then you can try cutting it at 800 Hertz. So I've got it boosted at the moment. If I cut that down and give that a bit of a smiley face scoop, so let's put a bit more bottom end in without actually increasing the bass above what I had it. I find pushing the mids up at that 800 gives me a bit more cleanness. And if you want the punchy rock, you can boost it at 220 or boost it at that 800 like I've done, which gives that mid push to cut through the guitars a bit, which hopefully we'll hear in a minute. So I'm going to have a look at a bit of what I would dial in for a rock sound. Now, I'm going to model this on Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love, and you'll have to forgive my playing again on that. But if I look for that, what I'm getting is, what I can hear is a bit more of an overdriven sound. So I've still got the bass down. I've pushed the mids up a little bit to around 8 at 800 Hertz. And I've pushed the treble a little bit. So the treble would be around about 2 o'clock. The channel volume I've adjusted for that. Again, I've still got the master pushed up. On the cabinet side, I'm using a 421 dynamic. It gives on the cap edge. I find the cap edge gives me that blend of brightness from the cap and a bit more of the woof from the cone as it pushes. It's a bit of a blend, which I quite like, but play around with that. I've got 1 inch away at 0 degrees. Now, if you want it a bit brighter, then you can go with a 57 dynamic. But for that Led Zeppelin sound, I'm going to try the 421. It's a bit warmer. and go with that. So with that bit of drive kicked in, again, I've got it around about 3, so I haven't got much drive in there at all, but it's just got that bit of bite to it. So again, drive at about 3. I'm starting at 3. If you want more, you know, between 3 and 5 is probably where you're going to get to. The bass, I've cut the bass back. I found normally I'd have it a little bit just below 5, but I found trying to get this Led Zeppelin sound, it was too woofy, so I've backed that off a little bit. So again, to your ears, it might be a bit bright. I've pushed the mids and the treble. So this is sort of what I'm hearing as a Led Zeppelin classic rock tone. So let's go and have a look at Whole Lotta Love and see how close I got. Oh, and again, I don't know why, but I seem to need to use a pick again. My sounds a bit woolly, but when I put the pick with it, it sounded more Led Zeppelin. Somebody's telling me to go back to picks. I don't know who it is. Let's check it out.
You need cooling, baby, I'm not fooling. I'm gonna send you back to schooling. Way down inside, honey, you need it. I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you my love. Oh, want a whole lot of love. 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 You've been learning, baby, I've been learning. All that good time, baby, I've been the dirt bed. I'm way down inside, honey, you need I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you my love. Oh, whole lot of love. Want a whole lot of love. Want a whole lot of love. Want a whole lot of love. You've been drooling, baby, I've been drooling. All the good time, baby, I've been misusing. Way down inside, I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you every inch of my love. I'm gonna give you my love. Yeah. All right, let's go. Want a whole lot of love. 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 Way down inside, woman, you need
To me, the Ampeg SVT is classic rock for bass. And to be able to get that stadium sound without having to lug the heavy valves and fridge with me up flights of stairs, or into a recording studio. With the Helix is luxury. My back thanks me for it daily. With the preset that you make, try expanding the tonal capability by adding a second 8x10 cabinet, and on this one use an SM57 microphone to give it a little bit more brightness on the second cabinet that you can then blend together. Or for your second cab, try a 1x15 to give a little bit more bottom end to the sound. Understanding how your gear works and what the models are based on, in reality, is the best way to understand how to create presets for your amp modeler. There are links in the description below to guides I've created to help you understand how your Helix specifically works with some of these amp and cab and effects models. Check that out if you haven't already. And to continue the Ampeg theme, check out this video for the B15. Catch you later.